I have great admiration and respect for Andy Reid. I really do. We text back and forth a little bit. There are a lot of times I have questions I don't want to interfere or ask, but I follow him. I follow him closely. Yeah.
And he's so good. He responds like that too.
Text message is amazing.
Really? Coach Reid.
Yeah, he taught me how to abbreviate texting.
I mean, he's a man of few words, so that does make sense.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? I'm Hayley Lewis. This is Dustin Colquitt. If you don't know, he's a Super Bowl champion, and he also happened to play with our favorite team, the Kansas City Chiefs. This is Hang Time. Yeah, there you go. Front it. This is Hang Time, and every single week we're going to be bringing you a new episode. Not only going to be talking through the topics going on with Chiefs Kingdom, but we're going to make sure that we have an expert from the kingdom, hopefully coming on with an interview, giving you a little bit of insight. And then we'll also have a community spotlight on one of the Chiefs' charities, giving you guys some insight to what these players not only do on the field, but what they're doing off the field. And Dustin, I'll kind of let you take it away on some of the perspective that we're going to be bringing. But just know every single week, not only do we break down Chiefs topics, but what we really do is give you some insight from a lot of people who have that experience on the field as well.
Yeah, and we are living in such a fun time in Chiefs Kingdom history right now, watching the potential that this lined up, the Super Bowl, and then this opportunity that has never happened before in the National Football League. So really looking forward to kind of diving into that. I love Brett Veach and Andy Reid and how they ever-changing template and matrix that they bring players in. They nail it in free agency. They're unbelievable 4th through 7th draft, which is super hard to do. And obviously we know what they've been doing with their number 1, 2, and third round draft picks, through the years. I love that perspective because now what we are going to study is the other 3 teams in our division that are drafting solely to try to beat us. Mm-hmm. I mean, try, because it hasn't been working. Of course, we're going to include some of your favorite legacy players that play at some of the key matchups. Like if we have a big game from, Harrison Butker will bring a Chiefs great back from the past and just kind of delve into like what happened in the game, what time, and Hayley Lewis with the news. And she's the boots on the ground. She sees them, and I'm looking forward to getting this rolling and giving fans kind of a different angle that works and how the players respond to some of the spotlight and how they get involved in the community, specifically in KC.
Yeah, I think that's important too, is that this is not just your X's and O's. This is what we're going to be talking about is more of the perspective behind the player, right? And who these guys are, what makes up being so successful, not only on the field, but in the locker room, the leadership, the community aspect that goes into this. And I think today we really start off with probably one of the maybe highest level of characters. We have, a former Chiefs head coach, a former Super Bowl champion. He's in the Hall of Fame. This is a guy that you want to hear. You want to hear his interview. Dustin, I'll let you intro our guest today, but a very special guest that gives you a unique perspective to behind the coaching, behind who Andy Reid is, behind the success that goes into a franchise, and behind potentially a three-peat coming out of Kansas City.
Yes, and Coach Vermeil and I have remained close. He drafted me in the third round of the 2005 NFL draft. We get to, chat with him today and talk about someone that is not a champion, but someone that has been at the head of 3 organizations in NFL, that has been a college football coach of the year at the college, the junior, high school, and professional. I did that in order, but he is a heck of a football coach and really includes not only his wife in making the significant others and wives, feel a part of the organization, but he works on the relationship side, and so does Andy Reid, and those 2 are some of the classiest people that I can think of that have kind of shaped this organization, what it is to present day, and I'm catching up with him.
All right, here we go. Here is Dick Vermeil.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Coach, we appreciate you being on here with us. We got a lot to talk about. You know, we mentioned it, training camp is rolling along, but so is the preseason. They just got that Saturday game out of the way, preseason 1 game done. And now there's 2 more to get through, but you were just sharing with us, that's not how it was back when you were coaching. You know, we think 3 preseason games is a lot, but I mean, you guys went through 6, you said.
Yeah, well, we only had 14 games starting in 2006, 1976 when it took over the Eagles. And we had 6 preseason games. And the vets would play maybe a quarter and a half each game. And sometimes I know I did, and other coaches did too, because I learned from other coaches. We'd play a whole first half and then bring them out and start the series offensively and defensively, 1 apiece in the third quarter to get them ready for the next week for the regular season. I don't know if it helped or hurt, but they played a lot more football in the preseason than they do now.
Oh, yeah.
I remember getting to Kansas City in 2005, and just like the way that you treated everybody the same, which was differently, was amazing to me. How you were able to take care of vets and still have guys like Tony Gonzalez catching 50, 60 balls after practice because he said he had hands. Mm-hmm. You had that thing wound like a machine. I know that when you were in St. Louis, like, this is one of the only things, I read this the other day. Coach, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you were head coach, general manager, and president of football operations, and you knew how to make those guys really work like a fine-tuned clock.
Well, I was fortunate. I had very good staff. And, you know, I had a great general manager, though we worked together on it regardless of title, and I was head of football operations. You know, and Dustin, I've been out of coaching for 14 years. I've been in broadcasting, which is not coaching. It's evaluation and connection and those kinds of things, and learning from the great coaches you're presenting their games. But I couldn't do it the way I had done it. I couldn't be my own offensive coordinator, couldn't call my own plays, coach my own quarterback. So I delegated authority. Then I made sure I had a program that I felt would allow us to get better every year and maybe end up being a Super Bowl. And so we had great practice routines, very similar to what we had in Kansas City. We only kept the kids that really wanted to work. You know, coaches sometimes get a lot of credit for motivating guys, but if you draft the right guys like yourself and other people, it's not motivation, it's direction and providing them with an environment in which they enjoy working. And I felt my staff was really humming pretty good, especially in Kansas City. And one of my main objectives was present a player in the frame of mind to be coached, regardless if he's an all-pro, a backup, or third-string guy that may not make it at the end. But I wanted everybody to be in the frame of mind as a player to accept the coaching he's going to get on and off the field. And for the most part, I feel pretty good about it. I do. You know, there's some things I would do different today. But overall, I think I would take the same approach.
Yeah, I just remember guys like Lynn Stiles and Mike White and,
James Saxton, all those guys.
All those guys, when you get in the league, is you really, when you got to Kansas City and, you know, several years before I got there, I think you got there in 2001 after a couple times, and then picking up each place that you started anew was in a hole. They brought you in to get them out of the hole and onto greener pastures. And it was always about the guys that you surrounded with. I've been in organizations before and college and stuff like that where there's a lot of egos. And I learned from Andy Reid that ego is a good thing as long as it's channeled in the
You bet.
That strength was all across the board as the guys that you'd like to win with and grooming guys to be men. You did the best at that. And
well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. I take pride in that. I coached high school football for 4 years, and I never stopped being a high school football coach. My job is to help each player be the best player he could be, as well as help him try to be the best human being he can be.
Yeah.
When you surround yourself with real good people, everybody's a positive influence on the other guy. You know, players don't walk in the locker room talking about the guy that didn't have to practice today because he didn't feel like it. You know, We never had those issues because we didn't allow them to start in the first phase of the programs. And I was very fortunate. And you have probably heard me say this, the first day of training camp, the first meetings, I would say, guys, I can't guarantee you're all going to make it, but I guarantee you're going to leave our training camp a better football player than you were when you got here. And that was my goal, to make each player a better player. And fortunately, sometimes they end up being, even the good players got better, and the average players got better, and the marginal players made the team. But everybody had to work together to do that.
Right. I think, and we were talking about this earlier, but you were coach of the year at the high school level, collegiate level, and the NFL. And that says something about just how you groom football players and get people ready for life. I remember being your third round draft pick. I met you at the Senior Bowl. You were outside of a elevator, and I just left a meeting with the Cleveland Browns, who wanted to draft me, and was big on, you need to look at people in the eye, shake their hands, and know who's going to be there. My father had played for the Steelers in the 70s and 80s. I remember rounding this corner after this meeting, and I was like, that's Coach Vermeil. And so I went, hey, Coach, it's nice to meet you. I'm Dustin Colquitt from Tennessee. And you bypass the handshake. You're like, man, you're a big punter. And just went straight to evaluation phase, and, asked me a couple questions about Dad. And I was just like, that was the coolest thing ever. I'm glad
you're passing that on. I appreciate that. The older I get, the more I appreciate hearing things that I did right, because my wife sometimes corrects me on all the things I do wrong. Years you get tired of them.
Hey, she sounds like a smart woman, though. But I did want to jump in here and ask you, you're talking about coaching at each level. What do you take away from each of those levels to make yourself a successful coach? You kind of talked about the character development of these young men at the high school level. What did you take from being a high school coach, a collegiate coach, and then into the professional that kind of made you the all-rounded coach that you are today?
Well, I think my number one concept as I matured and learned from the age, number one thing, people have to know you care.
Yeah.
They don't have to know how bright you are or how tough you are, or how disciplined you are. If they know you care, that starts the listening process. That starts the connection between two people building a relationship that is going to help us both. And so I always started there. And first, it's my nature. It's how I was raised as a kid in a little small town, and had some positive influences that it really influenced me in an attitude working with other people. But it all started with the age group. You work with this age group, 15 to 17, and you just fall in love with those kids, and they're part of your family. I go into junior college for a couple of years, and they're a couple of years older, and you learn this. They're slightly more sophisticated, and they're more talented. And then you get at Stanford, and then head coach at UCLA. It keeps going. But the number one concept that I always felt helped me is my players knew I cared. Even if I was pissed at them, them out, or had them in for a meeting, when they left, I knew I wasn't doing it for selfish reasons. I was doing to help them be the best they could be. And sometimes, including me, we all need a direct conversation with somebody that's being. But I always started and I always talked to my coach about it. I said, players don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that might even be more true in the NFL than ever, because there's Dustin, you know better than I do. Yeah, there's always an air of insecurity. Like I said last week at the Hall of Fame, that's the only team these players have ever been that cannot be cut, traded away. They're secure. They're in the Hall of Fame, And I always felt a player practiced better, worked better, concentrated meeting rooms, and got together with his players if there was an atmosphere that everybody sort of cared about each other. But it starts with the head coach, starts with the assistant coaches, and it permeates the team. Easy to do in Kansas City because they're partnered with Lamar Hunt. And Pearson, Lamar Hunt was amazing, man. Just one of the amazing men I've ever met in my life. I'd say in the top 3 or 4 people I've ever been around. He a consistent example of great man, and different, and Carl and I've been since UCLA days. So it was a great atmosphere to work in. I'm disappointed that I never did a good enough job to hand that Lamar Hunt trophy to Lamar Hunt. That's one of my biggest disappointments in my title 33 years of coaching. I didn't hand that trophy, and I'm so pleased that Andy Reid. I'm not surprised Andy Reid has done it because I know him well and I know what kind of coach he is. And when he's put his own staff together, his own personnel department together, his own overall organization, it's all backed by Clark. There probably is not a better organization in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's real. And you said that when I first got there, I remember. And Hayley, you'll appreciate is what Coach is saying here. What made me think of when we got to Kansas City is players, but Miss Carroll is great about getting to the wives and really making them feel like they're going to fit in. Because I was 22 years old when I got to the league, and we had guys that were 35 and 38 or maybe even older. And she made everybody feel like they were welcome and a part of the club. And Coach Vermeil, one day, once we got it, we were in the thick of training, and right when you think you may lose some guys to the heat or fighting or, just I'm not going to make this team. I remember Coach Vermeil said this, and I took it with me the rest of my career. They said, if you don't make it here, there's 31 other teams that are watching your film, and this is your resume. Your film is your resume, and we'll do anything we can to get you someone else, but we're building you a body of work while you're here. And I remember watching guys go, whoa, I didn't think about that, because your resume is on film, and so if you're doing the right things on under the lights, you're going to. You said that I just relaxed a little bit. I remember going like, man, thank God that that's true. And then, but the pressure was on, because you also, the same conversation, one of our second meetings in the off-season program, you handed out the main thing will always be the main thing. The Lombardi, like, this is awesome. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, thank you for remembering that. The other thing that we really enjoyed is starting in high school, and it helped me in how you work as a coach, maintain a good relationship with your spouse, in that I included her in the program. As you know, in the off season, we have position dinners at the house.
Right.
And barbecues, and Carol and I would do the work, and the guys come over, the punters, and their wives, and sometimes their little babies and that. And it's amazing what you learn about people sitting around a dinner table that you never hear in a meeting room or on the practice field or in the coach's office.
Right.
And it got so we did a better job of that in Kansas City than we did anywhere, because of the 5 years of knowing how to do it. And we enjoyed it as much as our players enjoyed it. And today, I saw Willie Roth and Will Shields. I spent time with both those guys last week, and they always ask, how's Miss Carroll doing? Is she doing? Is she still and all these kind of things? So it makes me feel good. Plus, it added a depth to our program. It added a depth to our program. It made it sometimes a little harder when it was time to cut a roster. I didn't know it was a lot of fun.
The longer I stayed, that was the hardest thing, is people would come and go and build such good relationships, especially kickers that stayed longer than most other players too. So you got 4 years, 6 years, whatever it is, and that would get hard. Your inclusion on everybody, though, still, I wasn't on your team anymore. I was still playing in Kansas City, and once when I wasn't even playing for the Chiefs anymore, I got a call and saying, all the old guys are back in town. We're going to go eat. So you're inclusive far after. Yeah. Even
I enjoy those guys. They're part of our family, our coaching family. And, obviously, Dustin, you get closer to certain kids than you do others, just because of their nature and how they match with you and how you think and how you watch them grow. I'll bet you I talk to 4 to 5 players a week of different guys all the way back. Hey, I was with Roman Gabriel Jr., the Hall of Fame. I helped him get set up there, and that because I coached his dad, who passed away this year. Just in 1971 and 72, I was his offensive coordinator, and it's fun to stay in touch. I spent time with Will Shields, and we talked about the legends. We talked about what they call Operation Breakthrough that Carol's involved in, and that. And I stay in touch, and every once in a while, that you have a player that has some issues. Sometimes very serious issues. And so by staying in touch, you can help him with his issues. And believe me, there's been a number of them since I retired in 2006. There's been a lot of guys that and I enjoy being involved. And I appreciate them trusting me enough to lean on me. And that gives you a good feeling when your career's all over.
Yeah. Coach, I'm sure like the fact that you mentioned it's a family affair, and that's why the Chiefs have found so much success, is because it trickled down, from the Hunt family. And I'm the daughter of a football coach as well. So getting to see the family perspective in that environment, how important do you think that is for the Chiefs' success that they have now? You mentioned it now. Miss Carroll gave over the reins to Miss Tammy, who is now trying to keep this team together. Do you see their success as a franchise really start with the family aspect? Players come and go, but it really is about keeping them together as a team each year.
And the group that ends up being there, I don't think anybody does it any better than Andy. He has such great emotional stamina to handle the highs and lows. When I first left coaching after 7 years with the Eagles, some success, and I got so the lows lasted longer than the highs were great to experience. And it starts to eat you up inside. And that's what happened to me. So I just took a break. I didn't plan on staying out 14 years, but I did. But I came back with a lot better perspective and far more mature as a person and how to handle the highs and lows properly. But to me, Andy's number one strength is the consistent personality and an emotional stamina that he has as he goes through a season. And I live and die with the Chiefs. Carol lives and dies with the Chiefs. I watched the preseason game some of it the other night. But I have great admiration and respect for Andy Reid. I really do. We text back and forth a little bit. There are a lot of times I have questions I don't want to interfere or ask, but I follow him. I follow him closely. Yeah.
And he's so good. He responds like that too.
Text message is amazing.
Really, Coach Reid.
Yeah, he taught me how to abbreviate texting.
I mean, he's a man of few words, so that does make sense. But, Dustin, you probably can talk about it too more. We get an interview setting with Coach Reid, which is so different than a personal setting, which you get with him. He always just seems so stoic. Yeah. Is that how he is, But the players love him.
Well, he's consistent. He is what he is, And fortunately, what he is superior. Especially as a coach in the league, because it takes such a deep profile of a man to handle it as long as he has and is Spain. And he's had other issues in his life that could create problems and you walk away from it. And he's, I personally never had that stamina. And maybe, there's no way he could ever develop it. That's just not me. But I sure love the fact that Andy can do it. I really do. And it's a real asset for him. It's a real asset for his coaches. Yeah.
Amazing to see how he can compartmentalize some of the issues that he has had and just from a player to player. Actually picks out a folder and says, all right, we're going to work this problem. This is how we're going to do that. And the reason why he's such what people say player's coach is because he has a very dry sense of humor. He's very funny and he's got great timing. And like you, Coach, he would come in. I remember one year I had to get my knee cleaned up, and it was like kind of right in between the off-season program and when training camp started, and I was not going to be able to run for that test that I don't think he does it anymore, but it was like 16 half gassers where you don't practice at camp. And but we're kickers. Like I'm not sure. All right, I soccer way gone. And so if you didn't do that test, so my knee is still kind of banged up and just healing from the surgery, so I don't run. Well, the next day we come out, we have a punt period at 3 p.m. And so here I am punting, and it's a little sore, but I didn't think I could run and do that. And so he literally walks the field. Now he has his 3x6 flashcards, any kind of stuff. So, but he walked all the way around the field, and I'm kind of watching. I'm like, I've never seen him do this before. Well, so he comes around, he goes around the punt return guys, comes around, sits right on my left shoulder, and he goes, "You're a wuss," and walks off. And I was like, "What? Like, what did he?
What's he mean by that?"
Pull this, and he goes. This is like a 18 play period. I'm like punting through, holding one. again, goes around, he goes, I can't believe you didn't run. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's really holding this run test against as a kicker. You know how hard that is?
Yeah.
But
he's proving how unique he is. When he finishes, his win-loss record will be equal to the best ever, I think. And he may not get up to where Shula was, but with all those number of wins. But
sure,
on a consistent basis of taking a team and having play by the end of the season the best they could possibly play. Win a Super Bowl, lose a Super Bowl, get beat in the playoffs. But they're always going to be at that level.
Hayley was right about this the other day. Somebody asked us this. We might have been talking before we were doing something, and I think we were asked the question, if you got to get rid of one of them, who do you get rid of, Pat or Coach Reid? You can't answer that, right?
No, you can't, because they're like Belichick, Brady. Who comes first? Of course, I always lean toward the coach because Brady and Pat are single positions.
Sure.
The coach has the influence on every position, including the coaching staff, including the draft, and all these kinds of things. So there's a wider influence, but a more dynamic contribution game day from the guy that's got the ball in his hand. And sometimes it gets a little distorted, and I thought Brady did a good job of always saying, I wouldn't have been what I am if I hadn't had all that support around me. I'm still waiting for one of these modern quarterbacks making $250 million a year say, something, I'm going to take 1/3 of my salary cap and spread it to the 2 or 3 key positions that we need for me to be as good as I have the ability to be. I haven't happened yet, but I'm looking forward to it. Well, actually, Pat has done that a little bit.
Yeah, kind of spread the wealth because, that's what you have to do. Yeah. You got to have that support staff. But yeah, you guys are giving all the insight on Coach Reid. What besides his, Air Force Ones, what else are the odd little things that we don't get to see about Coach Reid that probably you two probably know about him?
Well, to me, it's accumulation of spirit, of experience. The years he's always run his offense. He's always been the key. He's got offensive coordinators, but he's always been the key in the offense. So just think, every year, I thought this was good, but it is as good as I thought it was. I'm going to drop that. I'm going to add, I like this. I'm going to build on that. But you start doing that over 20 years, that's why his offense looked. I was impressed in the preseason there. Just the formation usage, the 4 variations of motion already in the first preseason game of backup players, and they were executing real well. But it's such a mature system that's gone through, eliminated the lows and built on the highs, and then keeps improving the highs. And if his great idea by midseason isn't working real, he just moves on. It doesn't keep trying to fight and make what he thought was good at the start of the year be good at the end of the year. It doesn't work. And he's done a marvelous. Nobody's done a better job of that.
I've been up to ESPN headquarters a couple of times, and always like going in some of these doors, and it says like they room, and you're like, what's the they? And it's like they said, or they do these statistics, and they like come up with this like stuff like what we read earlier. The year, high school, JUCO, college, pro. Somebody had to look that up, put that in. That's not just like an everyday thing. Like, and I was like, that is phenomenal. Well, he has guys, and where he goes, all right, now I got to figure out a guy that's on special projects when New England's in their drop. How can we beat them? How do we beat Belichick in that drop 6, drop 8, whatever? And so is so good about that teamwork thing. Like you had all of these people that were specialized in certain things. Lynn Stiles, I remember coming up to me, and like he was so good about me thinking about everything else but football. And then you're in a game day and you're like, oh yeah, it's just kind of like practice. And you so many specific jobs for so many good people, and that's what Andy has along the way. Whether that's in 13 and 15, he said, I got to get a guy that's doing 2 and 4 minute situations, so we don't have 7 rushing, rush field goals. Like we're rushing on to make a decision. Whatever. And guys that come in 18 when Bell's just dropping as many people as he can and making us beat him over the top. How do we do that? So you do.
Well, it just can't. with all these young coaches that have come in the league, and some have been very successful, but I've just always been a believer there's nothing can replace good, solid experience. And because experience gets you here and you put you in a new situation that you haven't experienced yet. But the deeper the background behind you, more likely there's rub off. There's rub off in it. It's not the same experience, but it's close. And here's where I made my mistake. Here's where I used poor judgments. Here's when I did the right thing. I'll do it this way. And, there's an old saying, experience only helps you after you need it. And there's a lot of truth to that. But Andy Reid has magnified proper utilization of experience. He's a bright guy. Yeah, like you said, he has a unique personality, a dry sense. He can be mad and make you smile, and it's hard to do that. I worked with a few coaches that had that ability to chew you out and make you smile at the same time. A couple of them were outstanding football coaches, but that was their personal attribute. Yeah.
You kind of mentioned you watched the first preseason game. I want to get a little more of your opinion on that. You talked about the offense looking functional, doing good. What did you see out of the Chiefs? I know it's early, and you probably maybe got one drive to really see the starters, but what do you think is going to happen for this team this year?
Well, I saw cohesion already.
Okay, yeah.
Some guys won't even be there. I saw a young quarterback. That's a long drive, dink down there, Andy style, and doing it well. It looked like a pro football team. Some of the preseason guys, you're not too sure what they look like yet. But I just felt it was a very cohesive unit out there. Mm-hmm. And the variations of what they were doing were maybe a little more sophisticated than a lot of people are doing the very first preseason game because he's done it so many years that this is where I want to be into that preseason game, And so I was impressed with that, number one. Yeah. Not so much individual play, though. I love the one little running back that broke off to the left and about three guys hit him. And with that, you don't coach. That you draft.
Yeah.
I can't even give you his name, but I said to me, he might make the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, that chemistry's there. I mean, the quarterbacks got the ball to 15 different receivers. I remember it was eerily familiar when Andy got here to when you guys were here with that offense that you guys had. Just you were either going to pound the ball down their throats, Willie Roaf pulling, and Will Shield,
Ryan Waters, Casey Wigman. That's probably as fine an offensive line as ever assembled, I think.
Well,
it's unbelievable.
He was a great player for us too. You got Jason Dunn, Barry Johnson, Priest Holmes, like you name it. And I remember I was like, I'm probably going to punt 2 times in the fourth quarter, right, with you guys. And then we went through a stretch from 2006 to 2012 where there were some preseason games, and we're still talking about training camp and preseason games. But I would punt 32 times over the course of 4 games.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah.
And that's not anything what you're talking about. Dinking down extra point. That's not where we're talking about. I'm dead. My leg's going to fall off.
Yeah.
Like, we don't even know what's going on. We're punting. We don't have an offense. Yeah. So see how you guys did it, and we kind of had some stuff going on. Mm-hmm. Andy, I would have loved to see you two together.
That's what I'm saying.
I would love to learn from him. I would want him to be the head coach and me be the offensive coordinator and learn from him. Because it would be right now in the game today, there's no better person doing a better job of teaching people how to be head coaches and run offense. I think Mike Shanahan, when he was at Denver, he's done that. Right now his son, Kyle, Mike Shanahan has done a lot of that for coaches that passed on how to do it right. And Andy Reid has done it now. He's had some of his guys go get jobs, and those jobs were not good jobs. It's hard to take a bad job and turn it into a good job. In the old days, they would give you time.
Sure.
Like me, it was always my third year. Kansas City Chief was a good job. My first 2 jobs as head coach. They were the biggest teams in pro football. No one lost more games than they did. And so it was a struggle, but they gave you time.
Yeah.
And didn't interfere. And some coaches don't get that advantage anymore.
I have to ask this because it made me think of after our Super Bowl win in Miami. I remember the first face that I saw when I got back to the hotel was Carl Peterson. And he said, verbatim, he said, me and Coach Vermeil knew that you were going to experience this one day. And I'm so glad that you got to do that. And my question is, because I got the card and I told him, I said every year, I was like, we're doing this. We're doing. There was some of that in there in between, with the Hayley years and all that stuff. But not this great Hayley, the other.
I know. It's like, let's clarify which Hayley.
And I remember when you said, when we won the AFC Championship game with Clark and Tavia's kids there and all the kids that got to see that, hand that trophy over. And I mean, that was almost more emotional for me than
it was for Carl. We knew what was being passed down to Lamar through Clark and through the Andy and through the teams, because in that, like I said, I'm repeating myself, that was my biggest disappointment. See, at the Eagles, I got the chance to hand the Lombardi trophy to the owner, and we got beat. At the Rams, I had a chance to pass that trophy on to Georgia, and we did. At the Chiefs, I never got that done. So I've always held that against myself personally, And I look back at some of the things the decisions we made that probably weren't the best. It didn't work out quite right, but some of the drafts didn't go as well and stuff like that. We could never get the defense at a level.
Yeah.
Like is now.
Mm-hmm. It's great.
Last year's unbelievable. They don't get the credit, But he's done an unbelievable job. And here's another guy that's gained a lot of experience. He's been a head coach, head coach of the Rams. He's been an assistant coach for Tom Coughlin. Tom Coughlin is a Hall of Fame quality football coach. You have to learn from those guys. Now here he is with Andy Reid. With Andy Reid and these two guys teamed up, it's like the old Chuck Noll days. Who should beat him?
So Coach Spag would have absolutely been on your coaching staff. And I have to tell a quick story since you brought him into the mix. I remember I was not playing for the Chiefs anymore. In fact, I was done with football. I was at a banquet with him, talking real quick, and somebody pulled him up because he was speaking for Chris Jones. Chris was somewhere and just couldn't be at two places at one time. And so Coach Spag was like, hey, sorry, I'll talk to you in a second. He texted me back the next day and said, hey, listen, I am really sorry that I got pulled away. You know how we get pulled different.
Oh,
I'd love to continue the conversation when convenient for you. That's something that you would do. That is.
Well, I know Spag pretty well. I first met Spag when he was defensive coordinator for the Barcelona Dragons in the early 80s in the old European League.
Yeah.
I got to know him well. He's an outstanding coach, and I've got to watch him grow. And he said, nobody. I can't name one guy that's had the opportunity to work for a Hall of Fame caliber coach in Tom Coughlin, which when he goes in the Hall of Fame, I'll feel better about myself being in there. And Andy Reid, those two guys, what you can learn. It's like working for Einstein and Wernher von Braun, okay? Mike, you're automatically going to end up being a lot better coach in person for the experience. And he's doing it great. And he'll come up with some things in defense this year that he didn't do last year.
Yeah.
Boy, he's great at improvising what he has to do. So I'm looking for them to be a little better football team than they were last year.
I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy that even is plausible. And this is absolutely no hate towards Mr. Nagy. Yeah. But if you really want to come back, we'll have you as the OC, and it's you, Spags, and Reid.
Well, believe me. At one time, when I ran my own offense, I thought I was a little creative, and I thought we did some things other people. I actually brought stuff from college football and put it in the NFL before other people were doing. Mm-hmm. All these speed screens, the quick screens, the wide receivers. Harold Carmichael is 6'8". That helped put him in the Hall of Fame because no one else would do it. Hot receivers and that kind of stuff. We were doing that stuff. And so, I felt good about it. And I'd learned a lot from Don Coryell because Don Coryell's assistant coach, Rod Dowhower, I brought to UCLA as my offensive coordinator. We worked together to build the Rose Bowl championship team. So I had great exposures offensively. And that my biggest, as I look back at myself, is is tapering the team off properly as you wear them down through a season.
Mm.
Yeah, and I always thought, well, if we lost, I got to work them harder to make them better. And even during the season, we're on the field a long time with full pads. And as I look, especially, it came up when I was talking to one of my Eagle players the other day. We started the 1981 season. Out of the Super Bowl, we got beat. We come out, we're 6-0. We're the only undefeated team in football. And the second half of the season, we struggled. We made the playoffs. We struggled to get in there. And I go back and look at this stuff, and I look at myself. If I had tapered a little bit and not worn them out, we probably would have won 3 of the 6 we lost in the second part of the season and entered the playoffs a little fresher. So I learned that, and that helped me in going to the Chiefs, and it helped me with the Rams. It helped me. But so I'm always looking back at that kind of stuff.
That's interesting. I remember Andy had such a great record coming off of a bye week, and he gave us the whole week off.
I copied him. I called him when I went back. And when I went back in coaching in 97, Andy Reid was my tutor.
Really?
And Bill Parcells, Andy and Bill Parcells. And Jim Mora. I would talk to those. Even Steve from the 49ers. Excuse me, my mind. We were friends before I went back into coaching. So I'm going to play them, but I could talk to them for help and guidance. Yeah. And I don't know if that goes on anymore.
Yeah.
But it did when I was coaching.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing. And I remember Andy he'd take the whole week off, and then we would come back on Monday, practice all week, play the Steelers in the playoffs. We didn't win. So next year we come back and we're like, he didn't go to that playoff, during the season, yes, but during the playoffs, we would work 3 or 4 days, again and back. And then what he started doing in 2017 is he would have a 10-10-10 practice on Wednesdays, do 10 offense, 10 defense, special teams, 10. He went to that, and then halfway through the season, that was a helmets off practice.
Yeah.
So he started changing in 2019. He even said, "You know what? I've never done this before. We're having an official chapel for a chaplain for the football team too, because I want to be nourished every way. If they're coming to this building, I want them to be, spiritually, emotionally, physically, well."
Yeah. It takes guts to do that, confidence. I'll give you an example. When I was a young offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams, Tommy Prothro was the head football coach, and I'd worked for him at UCLA as his offensive coordinator, and then came with him to the Rams because they fired George Allen and brought him there. And he would pick the toughest game of the season, not tell the coaches anything about it. They'd be off on Tuesday, come in and go to practice on Wednesday, and he'd cancel practice. Say, "Coach, I could put the game plan and put it in tomorrow." I said, he did that 2 years at the 49ers, 71-72, 1 year each, and we won both of those games.
Crazy.
But he said, in those big games, it's better to go in fresh than try to outsmart them. That was his. I never had the confidence to do that. I thought about it often because I had seen it work, but I was afraid to do it.
Well, yeah. It's been, and Dustin, I'm sure you'll jump in here too before we wrap this up, but learning the insight of just how much more coaching is outside of X's and O's it just sounds invaluable to the team's success. And I mean, it's been great to get your perspective on that.
Well, I thank you, Hayley. I'll give it, the coaches' wives are very important.
Yeah.
Their husbands go home every night. Okay. And they come back to work. And the better frame of mind they're in is usually the better frame of mind they are at home. And, when Carol walked on the practice field in the Kansas City Chiefs, used to come Wednesday or usually Thursday. Then other coaches' wives, she was the first woman to ever be on the practice field.
Really?
They never went there. And then pretty quick, you got the entire coaching staff's wives out. So she started what they called Chicks Night Out. Go somewhere. And everyone that didn't have a baby to go home, they would all go to dinner somewhere. And it started.
I love that.
Once everything pretty quick. It got to almost every week. But their husbands come to work in a good frame of mind.
Yeah.
It's infectious with their whole attitude. In fact, Carol and I are hosting a South of France trip September 17th. This will be the third time. Al Saunders and her Karen, who, coached for me at the Rams and the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Along, and we'll win more games on that trip than we ever won together coaching. But it's talking football, But the relationship part of coaching adds a deeper level to the consistency and the performance of the team. I think.
Yeah, absolutely, and I love. Thank you for staying on with us this long, Coach, and just
my pleasure. I'm still embarrassed about both, but I'll tell you this: it isn't the first time I've done it. When I forget things. But I talked to Carol this morning in breakfast about, God, I'm doing this at noontime. Can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. I did out there. Anyway.
Sometimes big oak trees fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our lives and just on our property. So
great to share time with both of you, Dustin. I got all just admiring how well you did and how you kept that family name in that aspect of football going. Now, if you've got enough kids, one of them might end up being you.
I got kickers and punters right now, so hopefully they'd.
All right. Thank you both. All right.
Appreciate you, Coach. Thank you.
Go Chiefs. Go Chiefs.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
Dustin, it's always fun to have coaches on here because you just not only get to hear that unique perspective, but just you see a personality behind the guy. A lot of people look up to, coaches and players, but they don't really get to see the behind the scenes and get to hear about, their wife and the aspects that go into coaching. So a really cool interview with him.
Oh, it was unreal. And, he was the face of Kansas City Chiefs football.
Yeah.
Here's where we had that. It was like the greatest show on turf again, but in KC, I say. And for him to give credit to everybody that was around him, and Carol, which was so good with the Wives organization and Operation Breakthrough and all these things, and he's just an amazing human being that really deflects. You feel and sense the humility, and obviously he's a little late and said he's 87 years old, and he had a big, in Chester County up in Pennsylvania where he has property, big oak tree falls, and he's out cutting the tree as we're supposed to be recording. It tells you that he never stopped.
And the best thing is he walked on to the interview, and you could tell he's just sweating and had just done it, and he's like, oh, I'm just like so flustered by it. And I'm like, the fact that you were out there cutting down a tree and then just hop on this thing and reminisce and have the whole conversation. He's still sharp as a tack. I mean, he's got great insight and just, he's doing, he was talking about it. Some of his friends, some of his former buddies are starting to, deal with these health issues, and him and his wife are, blessed and doing well. And it's just great to hear from him.
Yeah. I've been around a lot of coaches, and his ability to stay in touch with as many people as he
that's good. Yeah.
Get on Zoom calls like that. My is 92 years old. He's not getting on Zoom calls. Like he's in the moment. You didn't hear him say, I heard that 5 or 6 years ago, my former player was experiencing. It's right now, because he keeps in touch with everybody that he played with.
Yeah.
And I saw him do that meticulously, whether you're on offense, defense, special teams. I remember, he was like, hey, you are our 12th defender. You are on our punter. You're our defense. Our defense, so you're a defender. And so he was always so classic about the inclusion and obviously making himself available. And sometimes that's the biggest thing.
Oh, I mean, and also just, being from a coaching family too, you understand how important not only the coach is to what happens on the field, but also what happens in the locker room and what happens at home, and how essential a lot of these coaches are for these men, not only to develop into having better character and to be better husbands and to be better fathers, but just to also be able to be better suited taking care of their own life and the own pressure and the own things that go on daily for a lot of these athletes that we don't get to see, the fact that he is so available to these players and helps them through those things and is more than just a coach. And he was talking about Coach Reid also doing that as well. I think that's something that's kind of one of the unsung heroes of the sport of football, is just what it does, to the lifelong man that comes out of that sport after being in it for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever you get blessed with to play. It's just so much more than that. And he is still living it every day, even though he's been retired.
Yeah. And he remembers like wives and girlfriends' names,
which is crazy.
He would go and there was times where I was like, I'm pretty sure he's got an earpiece and they're like feeding him names because he was so good at
It's Miss Carol.
Yeah. and big time. And he's right on. I know Christy was always good about bringing the kids up to training camp.
Yeah.
The hardest part was when we were going up to River Falls, when you're like, a plane ride and another almost 2-hour ride away from anybody that and you're on bicycles. And so he was awesome about having a rookie skit. He always said, no hazing. We're a family. And that's not like that. Usually some coaches really love the hazing side of things. And I know that, Coach Vermeil was so good at just those rookies felt just as much as part of they got to make the team.
Yeah.
Part of the team. He remembers names, everybody that worked with, and where they crossed paths. You heard him all the colleges and stuff that he had coached at. I mean, he was telling you where he had met these individuals and that they still stand. I wonder why he's at Canton every year, because somebody that he's either coached, played, or have this long-standing relationship, he is there like cheering them on and so happy for that special moment for them.
Yeah. Something we're also, before we wrap things up here, that we're going to do every single episode is we're going to highlight one of the players and their foundations. And we're going to talk about it real quickly. So we're going to talk about Najee Johnson, who obviously going into his third year with the Chiefs, which is just crazy to think. And he is doing a 13 Promise Foundation that's sponsoring a back-to-school supply distribution. So I'm sure Tucker will throw up a graphic here in a little bit talking about that. But you are also a man who has a foundation, and also a lot of these players have these foundations. And I'm going to get your perspective on just how important it is for players to be able to give back to something that is, whether it's near and dear to their heart or just influential in their life. Really cool to see that these players all step up with their earnings that I truly believe they deserve, but, are big earnings and they're giving back with it.
Yeah, and it's amazing looking at him 2 years ago. He's one of the few players. I mean, there's some sprinkled in Kansas City, England, that are back-to-back champions, and they're rookie and second. That doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
Right? You got to be very lucky. And he has come in, started a thing in Kansas City, which I remember Coach Vermeil and Carl Peterson saying, when you sign this contract, this is a field contract, but you're also going to make 5 appearances in our community. And believe me, you think that's a lot, you'll do way more than that. And that's true, because Kansas City is the best football town in America.
Yeah.
He's felt that. I'm sure that I don't know what his situation is personally. I love watching him on the field, but I'm sure that he felt a little bit of that pressure starting school, maybe not had all the materials, and he has made it to this just this climax to his career of back-to-back championships. And he's like, I want to remember the kids. I remember being a student one day, starting school, may not have everything I needed. That's not going to happen under my watch in Kansas City.
Yeah. And that's really special. So this is going to be on August 18th. It's going to be from 2 to 5 p.m. In Kansas City, Missouri. So if you need to contact someone, again, there's going to be a graphic that we'll put up with more information about this, and we can also link it in the bio under this video. But it is a back-to-school bash, and basically it's featuring, food trucks, a bounce house, face painting, live bands, educational resources, and more to make sure that kids in our own community here in Kansas City are able to go back to school with the right necessities, and the right tools that they need to be able to learn. And it's really cool to see him giving back, and hopefully we'll see big things out of him this season. I know he's been dealing with some knee injury, hamstring injury during training camp, but was able to get some work done this past weekend. So we'll have a community spotlight every single episode where we are highlighting because that was something that was not only, important to myself, but Dustin, you wanted to make a point of making sure that we're doing something with this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And these players they're so busy, yet they want to be involved in the community, and especially in Kansas City. We'll have the graphic up. It's Maddie at goproject.org. And that's something that you can read. And every week we'll highlight the next thing coming up. It might be a couple things. We got Red Friday coming up for, opening kickoff. We'll talk about that next week. And just really, we know what they're doing on the field. That goes noticed. We want to make sure what they're doing off the field doesn't go unnoticed.
Look at you, a little future broadcaster right there, just wrapping it up with that line. Throwing it in there. For Dustin and myself, we'll close things here on Hang Time, and we'll see you guys next week.
Hayley Lewis with the news.
The tagline.